Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Fernando Gonzalez, and I am the Marketing Director at Bellatrix Software. For those of you who are new to Bellatrix, let me share that we're a South American software innovation company with delivery centers located in Argentina and Peru. As a company helping other firms achieve their development goals, we've seen an enormous increase in the number of requests of companies who need to reinvent the front-end part of their product. I'm sure you're very familiar with many of the words they're using when they come to us. Increased engagement, multi-platform availability, responsive design, improved look and feel, better user experience, and many others. Here with me are three of the company's specialists who are in charge of converting those questions or problems into realities. I will let you guys introduce yourself.
Hi Fernando, my name is Bruno. I'm a senior web developer here at Bellatrix. I have vast experience in front-end development.
Hi Fernando, hi everyone. I'm Germán Berselli and I am a web and front-end developer here in Bellatrix.
Hi everyone, this is Tomás Merlo. I'm a project leader and I've been working here at Bellatrix for about 3 years.
Okay, great, guys. Thank you. Bruno, why don't you share with the audience the topics that we will cover today?
Yes, of course. We'll start discussing about the rise of JavaScript and client-side web apps, something that is very, very current nowadays. Then we'll continue with the web developer skills and what every programmer in the front-end world should have in her or his toolbox. Then another important topic is the importance of UX design, which is something that's very new and very unfamiliar, but it's very important for front-end development. And then we'll finish with talking about app migration solutions and what we need to do to take an app from one technology to another one.
Okay, perfect. Just a few things before we move into the content. Remember to send us your question using the chat feature. We'll answer all of them at the end of the webinar, hopefully, if we have enough time. And second, at the end, I will give you more information about the free consulting session that we promised in the promotional campaign. So let's get started.
Yes, thanks, Fernando. As I was saying before, our first topic today is to talk about some trends in the front-end development world. And the first one that we can see is the rise of JavaScript and client-side web apps. This is a trend that we started to see kick off last year, and I believe we'll see it continue through the years to come too. There are many, many benefits for developers and also business-wise to building an app entirely in client-side technologies. For example, developers don't need to go off and learn an entirely new language. Deployment is a whole lot easier as the app can be deployed on any server as a set of static pages. The HTML5 JavaScript APIs, such as web storage, web workers, and also WebSockets, now make it possible to do all the things every server-side framework can do, and maybe even better. Also, devices and platforms, think about this, will be faster and more robust, and the internet will get more ubiquitous, faster and reliable. So it's only the logical move to move the processing to the client side because the development becomes much cheaper. But of course, as you know, there are some limits to what you can build on the client side. And server-side frameworks aren't going to go away soon for sure, of course. But we should see an emerging tendency for future small to medium-sized apps to run only on the client side. But actually, we are already seeing a strong push towards web applications that behave more like native applications. However, Fernando, I think this push towards faster and more powerful web application requires a shift in development methods.
But does this mean that JavaScript is going to be the only language active user living in the future?
No, of course not. JavaScript won't be the only language in the programming world, but it will certainly begin to seem that way. JavaScript lives within the browser, which now dominates almost everything a client computer does. And now even the server side is embracing it with tools like Node.js. Think about it. The browsers isn't just colonizing devices; it's eating entire platforms. So why worry about the SO layer when the JavaScript and the browser can do everything? And as I just mentioned, the Node.js attacked the problem from the server side. This is a whole new way of thinking for JavaScript. The server world has always wanted to have the threaded model that let the operating system indulge any clumsy or inefficient behavior by programmers. Whatever foolish or wasteful code produced, the OS would balance performance by switching between the threads. Then Node.js, which is based on JavaScript, came along with the JavaScript callback model of programming, and the code ran really fast, even faster than anyone expected. So suddenly the overhead of creating new threads became obvious, and Node.js took off. And what is really, really cool here is that Node.js also benefits from offering harmony between browser and server. The same code runs on both, making it easier for developers to move around features and duplicate functionality. So, as a result, Node.js layers have become the hottest stacks on the internet.
Okay, and how can you administrate this JavaScript code?
Well, that's actually a very good question because nowadays the complexity of the apps that can be developed with JavaScript has increased so much that nobody starts from scratch. It will be just crazy to do so. So it's simpler to adopt a great framework and write a bit of glue code to implement your business logic. There are now dozens of frameworks to choose from, like Kendo, Sencha, jQuery Mobile, AngularJS, Ember, Backbone, Meteor.js, and then many, many more. They work differently, but they do more or less all the same. They're all ready to handle what you need for your web apps and pages. So front-end frameworks were very popular starting in 2012, and in the years to come, we hope that we'll see further improve the workflow for developers. So another thing that we're eager to see more of is the front-end development stack. That for sure will be something that developers and framework manufacturers will be working on. What I mean from the development stack is a set of tools that ideally include the front-end framework choice, such as Bootstrap or Foundation, a testing server, a task runner like Grunt, maybe you're familiar with it, a dependency management like Power, seamless integration with any platform, although this may be asking a bit too much, and easy deployment through command line or GUI. And about this set of tools, I think we should pay attention to Yeoman, which is a great free tool which closely matches what I just said. And it seems to get more helpful and powerful with each new version. So definitely you should pay attention to it. And also Meteor.js framework, which combines both client and server-side programming in JavaScript, but in just one suite. So I think it will become the star of the market in the next years.
But what about styles? Do they also have their own frameworks?
They do, and styling, of course, is one big important part of front-end development. CSS frameworks like Sass or Less or its cousin Campus, have found solid footing. Why? Well, because they encourage literally stable coding by offering programming constructs such as real variables, nested blocks, and also mixins, which it may not sound like big news in the programming layer, but trust me here, it's a big leap forward for the design layer.
And what changes can we expect now that it's easier to create styles?
Well, hopefully we'll see more work in the animation and transition side of the styles with the power of CSS3 or all its predecessors. And this will clearly kick Flash out of the picture. Why? Because they can do more or less the same. Flash has been driving people crazy for years, but the artists have always loved the results. And they were right about some things. The anti-aliased rendering looks great, and many talented artists and graphic designers have built a deep stack of Flash code to offer sophisticated transition and animations. But as I was just saying, that now that the JavaScript layer has the ability to do pretty much the same, browser manufacturers and developers are cheering for DM Flash. They see better integration with the DOM layer coming from new formats like the scalable vector graphics and the SVG. Because SVG and HTML comprise one big pile of tags, and that's often easier for web developers to use. Then there are also large APIs that offer elaborate drawing of the canvas object, often with the help of video card. You can access directly to the video courses. That's a huge leap forward. Put them together and you see that there are few reasons to use Flash anymore. So this means less technologies to use, more stable and reliable apps, which obviously reduces the cost of development.
So this means that it can be used to play video too?
It can, but not actually with the same object. But HTML has done a lot of work in the video area. Why? Well, that's pretty clear. If you go to any website these days, there's almost always a video. And 99% of the time it's rendered through an icon from YouTube, for example. There are a few reasons why this method is so popular. First, YouTube hosts the video, so you don't have to worry about what bandwidth or storage. So that's a huge win. The correct video format is loaded based on the browser making the request. So you don't have to worry about compatibility issues. And also it's really freaking easy. With just one line, you include a script that shows your video. So by saying that, what I hope to see in the next years are more developers using custom HTML5 video tags to display video websites, and also enabling vast free protocol to monetize the views. That's a very important issue there. And using the latest standards, you also have more control over the presentation of the video, and you can keep in line with the rest of the site's design.
Right. At this point, I imagine there are a lot of people in the audience asking if we can expect changes at the architectural level too.
Well, of course, and that's one of the big differences from the development from last years. New web apps are front ends with large database filled with content. When the web app wants information, it pulls it from the database and pours it into the local mode. So there's no need to mark up the data with all the web extras needed to build a web page. It needed to build a web page. What I'm talking about is single-page web apps. So in this architectural way of thinking, the data layer is completely separate from the presentation and formatting layer. So what you can do there is serve different devices or different screens with the same data layer. So here the rise of mobile computing is another factor. A single responsive design web page that works like an app. And it's all the better to avoid the turmoil of the app stores.
So, what, in your opinion, what is going to change overall for the app development?
Well, that's a very good question because many people have different thoughts about this. But if I can explain my opinion, let me give you an example. Let's say you have a great idea for some mobile content, and you could rush off and write separate versions for iOS, Android, Windows, and, well, maybe even BlackBerry if you want to throw your money away. But each requires a separate team speaking a different programming language. Then each platform's app store sells its own pound of flesh before the app can be delivered to the user. Which is so much easier, you could just build one HTML app and put it on a website to run on all the platforms. So imagine that. If there's a change, you don't need to return to the App Store begging for a quick review of a bug fix. Now, the HTML layer is getting faster and running on faster chips. This approach can easily compete with native apps, or better than the ones that you have to develop for each platform. So what we can say is that HTML5 has matured as a mobile development platform. And this is just the beginning. It's a trend that's already taken off, and we'll see more and more businesses move their application development to the cloud. Think about this. Rather than provision, install, and monitor their own hardware, more companies are opting for platforms installing cloud hosts for their application development. So we're going through some serious, exciting years of change in mobile development that will completely disrupt how everything was done until now.
Great. So I imagine that having in mind all of these new tendencies and how important JavaScript is becoming, I'm sure the role of a front-end developer is also changing pretty dramatically, right?
Yes.
What is, in your opinion, what are the skills that a front-end developer must have nowadays?
Well, there are some essential skills that a web developer needs to be really good in his work. If you think I'm going to mention writing code, you might get surprised. Most of them have nothing to do with programming. They are related to knowing themselves and figuring out ways of work efficiently, but at the same time, keeping high level of creativity. The first skill is related with empathy in communication. And it's not only about not being rude. A web developer needs to understand how people feel and how will they react to different situations. This skill becomes really crucial when working in teams because they need to understand not only the client but also their co-workers' needs. Another skill is time and stress management. Mostly, the pressure of trying to make exactly what the client has in mind in short period of time can cause a lot of stress. Some people might think that if you are not stressed out, you are not working hard enough. But reality is that there have been plenty of studies recently showing that a relaxed developer is a better developer. Taking breaks regularly will help to produce better projects in the long run than working for 9 hours in a row, non-stop. A good time management, prioritizing tasks, taking breaks when necessary, and creating rational deadlines and expectations will help you to build a nice relationship with your development team. All that matters at the end is the quality of the final product. The third point is related with the core languages and concept of the web. It is pretty widely accepted that technologies on the web move crazy fast. Frameworks like AngularJS, Backbone, Cake, Express, etc. seems to pop up daily. But if you see it in another way, they are all built around the same core languages and the same concepts. They are all different configurations of core languages like Ruby, PHP, or JavaScript, and various concepts and methodologies, MVC or object-oriented programming. If you think of like that, things don't really move that quickly at all. They just get constantly rearranged. Remember Prototype.js? It was the big thing before jQuery took it down. If you only learned the Prototype.js library, you probably had a relative difficulty time transferring over to jQuery when it became popular. However, if you learn JavaScript really well, you could freely move between the two libraries and safeguard yourself against the future JavaScript libraries. After learning the core languages, anything else, it is just learning a new syntax. A developer that bases its skills set on learning the underlying languages of these frameworks and library will future-proof themselves against this fast-moving industry. Sorry. This means that instead of learning jQuery, the focus should be on learning JavaScript, and those things don't change. Finally, a front-end developer must have design sense. The days of looking for an excuse and saying, I don't know, I'm not a designer, are over. This skill is useful not only for web developers, but also for the client side. It is not like you need to be a designer expert, but understanding typography, color theory, and redesign, among other general things, will help you to understand decisions that designers make.
Okay, and then what about UX, user experience? Why is it becoming more and more important?
User experience involves a person's behaviors, attitude, and emotions about using a particular product, system, or service. Includes the practical, experiential, and valuable aspects of human-computer interactions and product ownerships. Additionally, it includes a person's perceptions of system aspects such as utilities, its ease of use, and efficiency. UX may be considered subjective in nature to the degree that it is about individual perception and thought with respect to the system. There is no process to follow on this, so you need to study each case in particular and analyze the possible designs individually. The true beauty of a great user experience design is that when it's really great, it is noticed at all. A magnificent, seamless, logical process flow, the unseen hero of digital design. But when the user experience is bad, it's awful. Regardless of its visual beauty, if users don't know how to use your site, it might as well be worthless. Some factors that might not seem so important, such as complicated languages or recognizable symbols, can put users off and end up costing your company significantly. Whether your company is a startup or a big business, UX design aims to achieve a delicate balance between the company's strategies and users' goals. And its core, great UI UX encourage maximum interaction while reducing drop-offs, making your site or service easy to use. If you have a startup or a small business, the UX is critical because it's the user's first experience of your brand. The first impression here is crucial. If done well, users will help direct other users to your site thanks to its functionality and ease of use. Keep in mind that the decision to stay or leave your site is made in milliseconds. Human beings tend to ignore symbols and functions they do not understand. The larger and more complex the site, the closer the attention to UX design has to be in order to help users to navigate your content. Retail and online sales portals have bags of merchandise that need to be categorized in accessible and easy to spot location. This also needs to be followed up with a simple, secure method to purchase.
And how can all this affect a company? Or how will a company be benefited, if you will?
Well, there are 6 key benefits to implementing a good user experience design. First is higher productivity. A carefully thought out process flow and fluid experience will minimize the time that users spend on your site, reducing their time consumption and getting more customers. The second point is more sales. From products selection to payment and deliver, a guide, user-friendly process structure will keep your users engaged until they decide to reach deep into their pocket and come back for more. The next benefit is lower levels of training and support costs. Reducing complexity also benefit your employees, as there will be less content and functionality to learn before knowing your site by complete. This means less time troubleshooting, more time to improve. Fourth, reduce development time and cost. If you know your if you know your intended user, you can focus on what really matters. Don't waste your resources on generate superfluous content. Fifth, reduce maintenance costs. Less complexity equals less support. Structure your site to fit your needs, not thinking what potentially your users might want. And finally, increase customer satisfaction. If your website is easy to navigate and has a fluid design, the customers will return. Well, there's not much to add here, so.
Right, but what about metrics? How can you measure the benefits of user experience?
Okay. The importance of using metrics is because they work as signals that tell you if your UX strategy is working or not. Besides, they are key to keep track of the changes you implement over time, benchmarking against interaction of your own site or application or those of competitors, and setting targets. User experience metrics focus on ease of use. The most commonly used metrics are performance measures such as time on task, success rate, or user errors. There are objective measurements that record what people actually do. So success rate have an element of subjectivity depending on how it's measured.
I assume that there are some specific metrics that you like to keep track of, right?
Right. Focusing on high-level business value may not translate to a better user experience, but UX metrics can complement metrics that company commonly track using analytics by focusing on the key aspect of a user experience. There are 3 good metrics to take in account that are usability, engagement, and conversion. Usability metrics focus on how easily people can accomplish what they want to do. They include time on task success rate, and ease of use rating. It may also include other things such as icon recognition, searching versus navigating, interaction patterns, or event stream that show confusion, frustration, or hesitation. Uh, Engagement is crucial for many sites, and it's also a notorious ambiguous category of metric. But UX team could make a real contribution to understanding how much people interact with a site or application, how much attention they give to it, and how much they spend in a flow state, or how good they feel about your application. Time might still be a factor in engagement metrics, but in combination with other metrics like page view, scrolling at certain time intervals, or an event stream, uh, this metric is tricky to read, but if you combine what with the previous metric, you get better results and quality insights. The last metrics that I recommend is conversion. Conversion is the metric that everyone cares about most. But if it's your only focus, you are only paying attention to a small percentage of users ready to commit at the expense of other people who have just discovered your site and want to increase their engagement with it. You can use UX metrics to design solutions for these secondary scenarios too. The metric in this category can help us to spot trends. The big metrics give to us the big picture, showing how a site or application change over time and how it lives in the world or the broader content of other experiences.
Thanks, Herman. It's been great. So, doing a little of a recap, so far we've seen the importance of JavaScript and UX. Looking at the time, we should jump to the next subject with Thomas. What do you need to do if you're planning a major migration to the latest front-end technologies?
Yes, thanks, Fernando. I'm going to talk today about migration of enterprise applications to HTML5 and JavaScript technologies, which is now a big topic for organizations. As you know, years ago, companies used applications built in Flash and other technologies that at that time were state-of-the-art technologies and the latest technologies. But with the boom of mobile devices and cloud access and things like that, such applications needed to be migrated. Yet, upgrading and migrating these legacy apps to new front-end technologies is just one piece of the puzzle. Demand continues to skyrocket, and the workplace for apps can be accessed through mobile devices, including tablets and smartphones, and developing a strategy for adding these technologies need to be carefully planned. So I've identified four steps, key steps involved while doing a migration to HTML5 and JavaScript. The number one is define the migration approach. Number two, choose a client-side MVC framework. Number three, develop a testing plan. And number four, define a build and deployment process. Let's start with the approaches of defining a migration for existing Flex apps to HTML5-based apps. The approach to be adopted here depends upon the time, budget, and complexity of the code. So let's say we decided to start from scratch and build a completely new app in HTML5. This will be the most straightforward solution to build a completely new HTML application. If the current application is relatively simple and if time and budget is unlimited, this approach offers a chance to create a fully optimized user experience in HTML. It will also be the easiest to maintain. So a few things to consider are current application is fairly simple and time and money restrictions are minimal. Also, it is convenient to get rid of current application than migrate.
But Thomas, how realistic do you think this approach is?
Yeah, let's face it. Most of the time we just can't get rid of existing application and rebuild or manage two parallel applications. Then let's consider a second strategy for the short term. In most cases, we will want a strategy that focuses on gradual migration of the existing application functionality to HTML. In this case, an outside-in approach is recommended, especially for apps hosted on a web browser. This means slowly changing parts of the application, starting with the outermost elements to HTML and continuing to use pieces of the Flex application within that new HTML until all the Flex elements are replaced. The work typically begins by converting any application from and primary navigation elements to HTML. Then the core views or content areas can be converted one by one as time and budget allows, until the final target of an HTML-only application is reached. Now, there are some things to consider for this approach. One of the things is that the application is hosted in a web browser. Also, the application container can be converted first, and a gradual conversion to full HTML is acceptable.
So should the current application coexist with the new application?
Yes, it can. It depends on the project, but in most cases, it might make sense in the short term to focus on doing new development with HTML and continue using what was already done in Flex instead of trying to port existing Flex work to HTML. While this is not the best approach for the majority of applications, it will be the right strategy for a few applications. In this case, I recommend an inside-out approach in which HTML is initially used for new components or workflows accessed from within the web application and then slowly expanded to cover more of the application functionality as desired. This approach introduces significant challenges for maintaining a seamless experience in some contexts. It can also be difficult to integrate into a complete HTML application. So it not only makes sense in some cases where existing Flex application will continue to live alongside new developments on other platforms. Some keys to consider on this approach are components or workflows accessed by Flex can be converted first, and the fact that the Flex components will remain in the application after the migration is acceptable.
And then what are the downsides then of keeping the Flex components in the final application?
Well, if you agree that you will have Flex application, Flex components within your application, some of the downsides are that you won't have a full HTML experience. You will also need resources to maintain some of the Flex components, and it's not going to be the same experience for users by having Flex components combined with HTML components.
Okay.
So going back to the steps, we already defined the migration approach, and then we need to choose a client-side MVC framework. This is a big topic also. There are many client-side MVC frameworks in the market nowadays, but there are also several factors to consider when choosing the right one. Many developers will quickly become overwhelmed with the options for HTML5 web application frameworks. On the other hand, with Flex, there was a defined class system, a defined component model, and a similar model view controller architecture that most of the microarchitectures implemented. This is unfortunately not the case in HTML5 JavaScript applications. Within JavaScript, you will find frameworks that differ greatly on each of these points. The challenge is to choose the right one for your project. So, when choosing your MVC framework, some key points to consider are how documented is the framework. Does the framework provide real-world examples? Does the framework allow for you to create testable applications? Does the framework provide the level of support needed for your organization? Also, what is the learning curve for developers? And last but not least, what are statistics and latest trends? There's an interest chart about trends and statistics. This is according to Google Statistics. This is the interest over time of some of the most popular MVC frameworks. As you can see here, we have AngularJS, Ember.js, Knockout.js, and Backbone.js, and on the server side, Node.js. These frameworks are very, very popular, and they all have its unique features.
So if a company wants to adopt an MVC architecture, what would you recommend, Thomas?
Well, this is a tough question. But if a company is attempting to decide on an MVC architecture, I would recommend going to the most popular one nowadays, which are AngularJS or Backbone.js. But it depends on the project. Choosing a framework that contains both a client-side MVC architecture and a mature class system is almost always going to be superior than piecing multiple frameworks together. Picking a microarchitecture doesn't have to be a permanent decision, but it'll give your developers a place to start. In addition, your team can augment the framework that you have chosen over time with modular development. In short, you can make a framework into what you want it to be.
So based on your opinion, do you think that Angular is the best way to go?
Well, Angular is making a lot of noise today. It's, as you know, supported by Google. It's got a huge community supporters, and it allows modular development. And even though the learning curve can be a little time consuming, but I think, in my opinion, it's the best way to go. But this is just deciding what the MVC framework will be. A third step in applications and migration is to develop a testing plan. Through its lifetime, Flex developed a quality testing story. Developers could leverage unit testing tools like Flex Unit and also enterprise functional testing tools. Making the switch to HTML5 application requires building a testing plan that is just as rich. Determining how to integrate your QA team into this process is crucial. For the first piece of the testing plan, an organization will need to make a decision about testing units of code. One popular solution is Jasmine, a JavaScript BDD. If you're looking for a more traditional framework, the jQuery project uses a custom framework called QUnit. If your team prefers to use something similar to JUnit, then I would recommend using JSUnit. The next piece centers on functional testing of HTML5 application. This is one area where HTML5 development can exceed Flash. With Flex development, the only truly powerful testing tool was HP's Quick Test Pro. With web standards development, the integration is a little easier. Tools like Selenium provide for quality functional testing of your HTML5 applications. And finally, the fourth step is to define a build and deployment process. As Flex matured, many organizations adopted build tools such as Ent and Maven. These tools have all integration with the Flex compiler, and building and optimize Flex application generally only took a few discrete steps. This process becomes a bit more complicated with HTML5 application. As you build your application, you will need to plan on having a build process that accomplishes the following. Number one, minify all your JavaScript code. Number two, combine minified JavaScript into a single file. This is to reduce the amount of files that have to be loaded. Number three, compile less SAS or CSS code if your organization chooses to use one of these tools. Number four, combine CSS into a single file. Number five, validate HTML, JavaScript, and CSS against organization or web standards. Number six, run unit tests. Number seven, run functional tests. And finally, execute load tests in a staged environment. This integration will generally be a combination of tools that you can run from the command line. Developing a repeatable and consistent process to push to production will certainly be key for your organization's success.
And how much time and effort should we put in when planning a migration?
This is, like I said, not an easy decision. So it needs a lot of effort to be put in. It needs to be carefully thought. There's a lot of things to be evaluated. It depends also on your team, your time, your budget, but it definitely needs a lot of planning. It could be, depending on the approach that you take. But migrating such applications, it's definitely a tough task. But defining the right approach, methodologies, and tools holds a lot of significance at present. It is also important to understand that it's not just translating code from Flex to HTML5, JavaScript, but it requires adherence to maintain existing application design, pattern, and architectural sensitivity. One of the key criteria having reusability of existing framework and code, so as to minimize changes in migration. But unfortunately, many times it will not be feasible or quite difficult to achieve the same look and feel like Flex or certain controls components with HTML5. In those cases, it will be up to the management team to make a decision whether they can live with the closest match to UI functionality or, in a way, improve this look and feel and components with HTML5. So, starting off on the right foot is crucial in this transition. Empowering your developers with these new technologies requires careful research and planning. By working your way through these items, you can approach your decision with the required amount of forethought.
Okay, great. Thank you, Thomas. It's been great content. And if we look at the time now, it's only a few minutes left to get to the hour. So let's jump to the Q&A session of the webinar. We'll probably have to extend a few minutes after the hour, but please hold with us while we answer the questions. So, first one. I have a question here that says, what's the best framework for front-end development?
Oh, let me take that one, Fernando. It actually doesn't have a direct answer. It depends. It depends on what you want. For example, if you're completely new to front-end frameworks, I would recommend to start with something easy, something small, something that allows you to pick only what you need. That might be Knockout, for example. Knockout lets you only get the parts that you need and create something with that. But if you want something else, something more robust, I think you should consider AngularJS. And Angular is very, very popular right now. Thomas was just talking about that, and we saw all the search trends. It's very popular because it has Google behind it, and Google is developing a lot of new content, a lot of new features, many documents that explain how to use it. So now we have more programmers, we have a bigger community. We also have better applications. We are already seeing some examples where the whole company business is based on AngularJS. It has some pitfalls though, because it makes you think the way you program, you code differently. You have a different approach. But if you're okay with that, I recommend that you should go with Angular and give it a try. Also, Ember is very, very neat framework, but it's not well documented and it doesn't have a big community. But nobody knows what's going to happen in the future because some frameworks might get bigger, some may fall. We actually don't know, as Emma was saying before. At one time, we thought that prototype was the biggest thing ever in the front-end development world. Then jQuery came, and now jQuery it's not so cool because it manipulates DOM and makes it very, very difficult to maintain an app, and it's not so wise to have it because of the cost that it takes. But I think you should pick something that it has a good community, that it has well-documented guide, the one that you feel comfortable with.
Perfect. Great answer. Thank you, Bruno. Let's jump to the next one. And this one says, is it crucial to have a UX expert, a user experience expert, or you can replace that with developers and designers?
Well, let me answer that question. In my opinion, UX is not a minor thing. So if you really want a well-done design, you might consider have a specific person in charge of this role. In my experience, when one person is in charge of many things, the results could not be as good as expected. A developer or designer can easily work as a UX designer, but I think that it's better to have one specialist in this area.
Yeah, sometimes designers take that kind of work. I think I don't think that's the best way to go because they know the concepts, they know the aside from all the technical skills that they have to know and the graphic design. I think that the psychology concept behind that is what graphic designers have. And I think it would be great if graphic designers start training themselves in expanding their knowledge on UX. But sometimes some companies decide on hiring UX contractors, consultants, because they are very, very experienced guys that they actually don't do any design or code anything, but they just let you know what you have to do. And these are big guys in the UX world, and they know a lot, and they're very, very busy. So you pay for consult them, and they tell you what's wrong and what is not, and then they come back and revisit all the changes and go over the process again.
Great, perfect.
Do we have any more questions?
We have some more. This one says, is everything around JavaScript free?
Yes, I'm looking at the question. Everything is free because JavaScript runs on the client side, so all these frameworks are free. You might pay for support sometimes, but the actual JavaScript is free. And also there are some CSS frameworks that come along or go along with these MVC frameworks that are also open source or free. Some of the most popular are Bootstrap CSS, from Twitter, Foundation. That it is also a key or a factor to consider when choosing an MVC framework. But to answer that question, yes, all JavaScript technologies and frameworks are free.
Right, perfect. And I think this next one question is also for you, Thomas. And this one says, is it better to migrate altogether or do a progressive migration?
Yeah, yes, talking about migration, it depends on the project, of course. Let's think about a big project where you have a big application already running and you need to migrate it. Sometimes it's difficult to do it all at once because you wanted to, for certain time give your client, your users something new to test, to use. But sometimes this is not possible and can lead to mistakes. For example, having hybrid applications can create many issues. So depending on the project, if time and money allows, I think in my experience, it's better to do it all at once.
Okay, great.
Do we have another one?
And yeah, and looking at the time, we'll do the last one. And this one says, what will happen in the future with app development? And I think this one is referring to what Bruno mentioned, that probably in the future you won't have many apps, but you can have web apps there.
Yes, I already expressed one opinion is, of course, not what will happen. We don't have the answer. I don't know what you guys think. But what I think is that we're moving towards what Java in some point tried to do. There is just build one app, code one app, and have it deployed in every platform and device. And I think JavaScript and frameworks are helping us to do that. As we were talking about before, we right now we only need just one language for the whole process. That's to be pretty awesome. If you only have to make one kind of app and stop worrying about the OS layer or some other technology layer, it's a stress-free. You only have to train your developers in just one or maybe two technologies. It will be easier to find the developers and the resources you need to build apps. Everything will be in the cloud. To me, that's where we are going because internet will be faster. We will have internet everywhere, even in our fridges. So everything in the cloud, you don't have to worry about hosting. Bandwidth will not be a problem. I'm sure about that. I think we're moving towards that, towards having everything in the cloud and consuming from simple DAO devices that are clients for robust applications, and they do all the necessary calculations in the client side. They do different kind of requests to a backend server, of course, in the cloud too. That's it. You can have the same application that you have on the phone, on your machine, or even on your microwave. It's going to be just the same.
Great, perfect. So we are over the hour now. So that will be our last question for today. For those questions that were not answered, please contact us and we'll do a follow-up with you. As a reminder, we will share a link to the slides and the video recording shortly. In that email, you will also find the instructions for your free 30-minute consulting session to discuss your current situation and your front-end needs. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And
Bye.
thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to share this live event with you. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the day.